My name is Kende Philip Akintade, an MSc Cyber Security student of University of Plymouth. I'll be doing a short presentation to summarize my endpoint-focused investigation of the bot SV3 dataset using Splunk Enterprise. I will walk you through exactly what I did, why I did it, and the evidence that supports each finding, from environment setup to the dataset validation, investigation workflow, guided questions 1 to 6, evidence and findings, and the conclusion. I structured this presentation to match a SOAP-style investigative workflow. Each section reflects the steps I follow during the assessment. So let's get started with the environment setup. I deploy Splunk in a controlled virtual machine environment, just as you can see the screenshots right here, for both the virtual machine setup and the Splunk setup. Then after that, the bot SV3 data was pre-indexed, as we know, and was downloaded from the GitHub link given to us. So I ingested the bucket files directly into Splunk's index directory and confirmed the index was active. Then after that, I validated my dataset by checking for the source type, the time range, and also event counts. So my workflow mirrors a tier 2 SOC analyst process because the dataset was pre-indexed. I had to adjust several queries to match the available fields. Each query was chosen deliberately to answer a specific investigative question. So my investigation approach is as follows. Identifying suspicious activity, selecting relevant source type, writing targeted Splunk queries, validating outputs, interpreting evidence, correlating across logs, and document findings. Now let's get started with the investigation using the guided quiz, and I'll be talking about what I did and the outcome. So the first question is, what port was used to download the attack tools? In this case, I made use of my query to analyze outbound GET requests from file.l, which actually gives us the result that port 3333 stood out as an unusual and high volume destination, indicating malicious download activity. The second question is, what file was downloaded that contained the attack tools? After I've been able to identify the port, which is port 3333, I use my query to filter traffic to that port. And as a result of that, I got to know that the file downloaded was logos.png, just as it is shown on the screen. The next question is, what two files were streamed into the temporary directory? For us to know the files that were streamed, I actually use osquery logs to identify file creation events in temporary directory. And after that, I filter the noise and correlate timestamps. And when I did that, I got to have these two files, colonel.c and definitely do not touch and definitely do not investigate this file.sh. The next question is how many fruitfully customer emails were exposed. In the course of running my query, I couldn't get a count of 8 because the messages were actually hidden, and the receiver email were also hidden, like as you can see on the screen where you have the square bracket and the plus. So what I needed to do, or what I did in that case, was for me to review each SMTP event, and I counted the emails listed in the pastebin link. That is exactly what I did, and I was able to get my results. The screenshot actually tells more about that on what was done. You can see I had to click on the plus sign to get the receiver email, and they are being shown right there. And I kept doing that, one after the other, so that I can see, the emails and the receivers of the emails. So what is the path of the C2 URL? In this case, I actually use my query just as it's seen to get the path. So the $T equals to the variable written right there actually contain the attacker's C2 URL. And as a result of that, gives us, admin/admin/get.php, yes, as the only, path that match known but SV3 C2 behavior. And the last but not the least question is which endpoint contacted the C2 infrastructure? So with my query, I used my query to actually summarize outbound traffic to the attacker's C2 IP. And as a result, I have these two endpoints shown and their significance, which are their significance in terms of communication volume and also confirming compromise. So we have the Faudal L and Abon GSTL. So in conclusion, this investigation actually reflects a complete Tier 2 SOC workflow. I actually make use of Splunk to reconstruct the intrusion, validate each finding, and handle dataset limitations appropriately. Thank you.